You know, we've all heard the story, right? That America's in decline, that its best days are, well, they're in the rearview mirror. But what if that whole narrative is just missing the point? Like, completely missing the bigger picture? What if the real story, the one that's going to define the next 100 years, isn't even happening down here on Earth? Let's dive into that. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, yeah, we'll touch on that familiar America in decline story, but then we're going to pivot and pivot hard to the new frontier, space. We're going to look at America's dominance right now, this incredible off-world economy that's being built, the actual path to a new civilization, and the kicker, why this lead might just be impossible for anyone else to catch up to. All right, so let's start on solid ground, right? With a story I bet most of us have heard 1,000 times. It's a narrative of doubt, and honestly, it's pretty easy to buy into if you're just looking at a certain set of numbers. The core idea is basically this. America is a civilization that's kind of falling apart. It's past its peak, it's struggling with all these internal problems, and other countries are catching up and passing by. And look, it's a really powerful story, and you hear it everywhere. And look, this whole story isn't coming out of nowhere. It's fueled by some very real, very legitimate concerns. I mean, you look at things like stagnant GDP growth, this mountain of national debt, the constant trade deficits, the loss of manufacturing jobs. These are the classic 20th century ways we measure power. And if you only look at those, yeah, it's pretty easy to see why you'd make a case for decline.
But here's the pivot. This is the big what if. What if focusing on all those old metrics is like trying to figure out who's winning a Formula One race by only looking in the rearview mirror? What if we're not just on a new track, but in a whole new kind of race?
So this really is the key question, isn't it? For like all of human history, we've fought over land and resources and influence, right here on this one planet. But what happens when the playing field just expands infinitely? Because that is exactly what's happening right now. The new domain of dominance, the infrastructure, the resources, the superintelligence, the stuff that's going to define our future, it's all being built literally above our heads. And one country is getting ready to own that domain in a way no nation has ever owned anything before. And just to be clear, this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. The lead America has in today's space race, well, it's not really just a lead. It's a staggering, almost complete dominance. And it's happening right this second. What's really crucial to understand is the sheer scope of this. We're not talking about one or two advantages. It's the whole ecosystem. You've got Starlink with thousands of satellites beaming internet down to the entire globe. You've got AI satellites that are going to power the next wave of superintelligence. And the foundation for all of it? Reusable rockets. The things that make this all affordable by just crushing the cost of getting to orbit. And the punchline? They are all American companies and American tech. And this comparison right here just perfectly illustrates the technology gap. So while China just recently celebrated its first test of a reusable vehicle, something kind of like the Falcon 9, SpaceX already thinks of the Falcon 9 as like old technology. They've moved on. They're all in on Starship, which is a vehicle so far beyond anything else. I mean, it's a total generational leap in what's even possible. Okay, so when you have that kind of insane dominance in just getting stuff to space, what do? Well, you start building a brand new economy, one that's totally unchanged from the physical limits we have down here on Earth. And a huge piece of this puzzle is asteroid mining. For decades, this was just pure science fiction, right? The stuff of movies. But now that reusable rockets have sent launch costs through the floor, the math is suddenly starting to make sense. We are talking about getting our hands on resources in quantities that are, honestly, they're hard to even wrap your head around. And this is where it becomes a total game changer, geopolitically speaking. I mean, just think about it. Imagine a world where, say, China's monopoly on rare earth minerals just evaporates overnight. Imagine having access to basically unlimited raw materials for all of your most advanced manufacturing. It doesn't just change the game, it completely rewrites the rulebook for the entire global economy. But listen, resources are only half the story. The other massive pillar of this coming off-world economy is intelligence. And I'm talking about building the absolutely colossal data centers you're going to need to train true superintelligence. So, why build them in space? It's simple, really. The physics are just better. You've got unlimited, free solar power 24/7. Cooling? That's the biggest headache for data centers on Earth. In space, you just radiate the heat out into the void. It costs zero. Plus, no land to buy, no water permits to fight over. And again, who has the rockets to get these things up there and the leading AI companies to run them? Yeah, America.
So where is all this headed? What's the end game? Well, when you have virtually unlimited resources and unlimited intelligence, you don't just build a bigger economy. You start building an entirely new branch of human civilization.
And look, this isn't some vague, far-off dream. There's a very plausible pathway here. Step 1, we have launch dominance today. That's checked off. Step 2, that enables a real, permanent moon base in the early 2030s. We're not just talking about planting a flag and leaving. And from that base, a self-sustaining Mars colony stops being science fiction and starts being a very real engineering problem that you can actually solve.
And you have to understand that moon base is the absolute key piece of infrastructure. Think of it like a port city. Because the moon's gravity is only 1/6 of Earth's, launching a ship from there to Mars or the asteroid belt is just vastly cheaper and easier. The moon isn't the destination, it's the jump-off point for the entire solar system.
So, why Mars? What's the point of it all? Simple. It's the ultimate insurance policy for humanity. A self-sustaining colony on a second planet means that no matter what happens here on Earth, a giant asteroid, a supervolcano, you name it, humanity survives. Our knowledge, our culture, our values, they don't get wiped out. And let's be real, that first colony is going to be led by America. Okay, so this brings us to the final and maybe the most important point. Why is this lead so special? Why might it actually be unbridgeable? The answer is because it's not just a simple lead. It's a self-reinforcing feedback loop that just compounds on itself, getting bigger and faster over time. Just look at how this feedback loop works. Step 1, your superior rockets let you put more stuff in space, like massive AI data centers. Step 2, all that compute in orbit lets you train way smarter AI. Step 3, that smarter AI then turns around and helps you design even better rockets and more efficient technology. Step 4, that new tech lets you accelerate everything else even further. It's a virtuous cycle, an exponential curve that America is pretty much the only country in a position to ride. And that's because no other country on Earth has all the necessary pieces of the puzzle. It's the whole ecosystem. You need the top AI companies in the world. You need the cutting-edge private rocket companies. You need the deep, massive capital markets that can actually fund these insane trillion-dollar ideas. And you need a government and a regulatory environment that actually encourages all this private innovation instead of crushing it. Right now, only America has the whole shebang. And that really brings us full circle, back to where we started. Well, everyone else is still focused on those 20th century metrics, arguing about GDP points and trade deficits. America is quietly building the fundamental infrastructure for the next century. Those old numbers, sure, they still matter, but they are not where the real game is being decided anymore. So, the next time you hear that old, familiar story of American decline, maybe just look up, because according to this line of thinking, the real game is being decided about 300 miles over our heads, and America isn't just winning it. It's winning before most people even realize the game has started.